How immigration built America, every major wave explained. Between 1820 and today, more than 100 million people came to the United States. They came in waves. Some waves were welcomed. Others were feared. Some changed America forever. All of them were changed by it. This is the story of how immigration built a nation. Not in one generation, but in 5 great waves. Long before there was a United States, there were colonies. And before there were colonies, there were ships. Between 1607 and 1775, hundreds of thousands of Europeans crossed the Atlantic. English, Scottish, German, Dutch, French. They came for land, for religious freedom, for a fresh start. By 1775, the year before independence, nearly 2.5 million people lived in the American colonies. Most were from the British Isles, England, Scotland, Ireland. About 9% were German immigrants. And 20% were enslaved Africans, brought against their will. This was not yet America. But this was the foundation. The first wave. In 1820, something changed. The trickle became a flood. Over the next 60 years, 10 million immigrants arrived in the United States. They came from Ireland, from Germany, from Scandinavia. They came because staying home meant starvation. In Ireland, the potato famine killed 1 million people. Another 2 million fled. In Germany, failed harvests and political upheaval pushed 5 million to leave. In the northern countries, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, families sold everything they had for passage to America. They arrived with nothing. They faced discrimination, hostility, violence. Signs read, "No Irish need apply." Newspapers called them criminals, drunks, a threat to American values. But they stayed. They worked. They built. They survived. By 1860, 1 in every 8 Americans was an immigrant. The country was changing. And there was no turning back. Between 1880 and 1924, America experienced the largest wave of immigration in its history. 23 million people. From Italy. From Poland. From Russia and Eastern Europe. Jews fleeing pogroms. Italians escaping poverty. Greeks, Hungarians, Romanians, all searching for work, for safety, for a future. This was not like the earlier waves. These immigrants didn't speak English. They weren't Protestant. They weren't from Northern Europe. They were Catholic, Jewish, Orthodox. And many Americans saw them as a threat. Ellis Island opened in 1892. Over the next 60 years, 12 million immigrants passed through its halls. They were inspected, questioned, marked with chalk if they looked sick. Some were turned away. But most were allowed in. Ellis Island opened in 1892. For millions of immigrants, it was the gateway to America. But it was also a test. The journey didn't end when the ship docked. Immigrants were ferried to Ellis Island. They climbed narrow stairs from the boats. Doctors stood at the top, watching. Watching how they walked. How they breathed. Looking for any sign of weakness. Those who seemed sick were marked. Not with words. With chalk. H for heart problems. L for lameness. E for eyes. X for suspected mental illness. A single chalk mark could mean everything. It could mean separation from your family. It could mean weeks of detention. It could mean deportation, sent back across the ocean after coming so far. Those who passed the medical inspection entered the registry room. A massive hall. Hundreds of people at once. They waited in long lines. Sometimes for hours. Then came the questions. What is your name? Where are you from? Can you read and write? Do you have money? Do you have a job waiting? Who will you stay with? Many couldn't answer in English. Translators shouted across the room in dozens of languages. Italian, Yiddish, Polish, Greek, Russian. The noise was overwhelming. Families held their breath. One wrong answer could mean rejection. Children clung to their parents. Women prayed silently. Most passed. But not everyone. About 2% were turned away. For some, Ellis Island was the end of the dream, not the beginning. For those who made it through, there was one final moment. Walking out of the building. Stepping onto American soil. The journey, the real journey, was only beginning. In 1907, the wave reached its peak. 1.3 million immigrants arrived in a single year. The highest number in American history. America was being transformed, not gradually, but rapidly. Its cities grew. Its factories filled. Its culture shifted. And not everyone was happy about it. In 1924, the United States government did something it had never done before. It closed the door. The Immigration Act of 1924 imposed strict quotas on who could enter the country. It favored Northern Europeans, British, Germans, Scandinavians. It severely limited Southern and Eastern Europeans, Italians, Poles, Russians. And it nearly banned Asians entirely. Immigration dropped by more than 80%. For 40 years, America became a closed nation. This period is often called the Great Pause. The wave had stopped. But pauses don't last forever. In 1965, President Lyndon Johnson signed a new law. The Immigration and Nationality Act. It abolished the old quota system. And it opened the doors again, this time, to the entire world. The new wave came from places America had never seen before. Mexico. China. India. The Philippines. Vietnam. Nigeria. Pakistan. They came as refugees. As workers. As students. As families reuniting. They came legally and illegally. And they changed America once again. Today, nearly 47 million immigrants live in the United States. That's 14% of the population. More than 40% of all Americans are either immigrants themselves, or the children of immigrants. The largest groups today come from Mexico, China, India, and the Philippines. And the wave continues. Every generation, Americans ask the same questions. Are there too many immigrants? Are they changing our country? Will they assimilate? The answer, history shows, is always the same. Yes, they change the country. And yes, the country changes them. That is how immigration works. That is how America was built. Between 1820 and today, more than 100 million immigrants came to the United States. America wasn't built by one people. It was built by millions, arriving in waves. Each wave changed the country. And each wave was changed by it.